So I have a confession to make. I actually have well over about 40 different varieties of grains at my house. I also love to have a completely fully stocked pantry. But if I had to choose, if I had a downside or it was end of the world scenario, what are my ride or die go to must have grains in my pantry as well as other items? And I'm going to be narrowing it down to where there's no refrigeration or air conditioning needed. We're talking what are the foods that I absolutely must have to not only make sure that my family, my large family, does not starve, but also make delicious meals as well. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel, I teach you all about real whole grains, all from a biblical perspective. I teach you how and why to be milling your own grains, milling that wheat, making that bread, and more. All right, so a little bit different of a video because right now, the way the state of the world is, and if you follow other channels that may be suggested by following me, you may be a prepper or just interested in like, what should I be keeping on hand for my family for if times really get bad? Let's face it, y'all, doesn't matter where you're at on the political spectrum. I think everyone can see, things like gas prices going up, food prices going up, and that's been going on for a long time now. And so what can we do? And honestly, I believe in preparing even for, what if you lose your job? What if Florida person here, there's a hurricane, no electricity and things like that. So I do like being prepared. I'm also a large family mama. I got a lot of mouths to feed here. And on top of that, I have this YouTube channel and I teach you all about real whole grains. And so that means I have a lot of grains, like far more than probably the average person has, especially with the variety that I have because I like experimenting. So we're going to be talking about what my go-to ones. If I had to pare down, if I was forced, what would I have? But also more specifically, what do I feel is the most important to have in my pantry? Not only as like a prepper type pantry, what I want to have on hand that I'm comfortable using, that I know what to do with it. I can make delicious meals with it. So we're just not on starvation rations that are actually going to be nourishing for my family and feed us well. And of course, to start off this list, we're going to be talking about the grains that I want to have on hand. The beauty of grains and why everyone should be storing them is because you don't need refrigeration. They don't need to be canned or frozen. With grains, it's beautiful. I've done videos about this. All you need is a good container with a good lid to keep out your pest and your moisture. I keep my grains out in my uninsulated shed here in Florida. Very hot, very humid. So these are ones that I can even have the power go out and it's totally fine. And grains are superfood. So they are very, very packed with nutrients, and I didn't really have to do much to them to store them. So like I said, I have well over 40 varieties, and I haven't even counted in a while. It may be over 50 by now, and you don't need that many because frankly, when it really comes down to it, like if I was to really pare it down and have to shed, I'm only looking at about 6 or 7 that I would want to have on hand like at all times. So first grain on the list is brown rice. I love rice. Rice can be used in a variety of things. I use rice a lot. Specifically, brown rice is what I want. Now, it is tricky with brown rice because it's an oilier grain and you don't really want to store that for more than a year. So that is something that you definitely want to keep rotating through. Long-term storage technically would be white rice. That would really store for a long time, but you're not getting any nutrients really from white rice. So it's kind of, I see it like empty calories, like you get calories, but you're not getting nutrients with it. And some people might have digestive issues with white rice, where brown rice, you're at least getting fiber, better nutrients. But that one is the hardest, kind of a little bit trickier with storing it in a prepper pantry because I would rotate that out every year or so. Now, second on the list is oat groats. Another one. So if you're not sure what oat groats are, they look like wheat berries. Basically, that is what actually comes off the plant of oats, and then they are either rolled or they for rolled oats, and then they're cut up more to make quick oats, or you take the actual oat groats and you cut them up, and those are your steel cut oats. So I just like to start well at the beginning with oat groats. Now, with oat groats, you do need to make sure that they are stabilized for longer term storage. Again, I have other videos about that, but I have the ability to roll my own oats, and oats are really great. Another source of nutrition. Oats are really great with beta glucan, which is really great for your immune system. So, again, oats, brown rice, and then the wheat that I'll get to in a bit. I like having these variety of grains and beans. I forgot the beans. I like to have the variety of beans because I'm getting different levels of nutrition from each one of them. So oat groats on hand. Now, as far as beans go, I love my dried beans. Beans, seriously, if you're not having them in your diet, you're really missing out because they are so cheap. They're so easy to store. So my go-to ones are black beans, pinto beans, and great northern beans. So those are the ones that I reach for pretty much the most. Oh, I forgot. Some sort of red bean. And I kind of go back between like small red beans or like light kidney beans or dark kidney beans. I kind of go back and forth. I kind of can't decide which one I like. Red bean, kidney beans are great for chili. So I do kind of like them. But if you notice, I kind of have different colors with the beans. Black beans, pinto beans, great northern beans, and like those honestly are the three that I use the most. But like if I have a little bit of extra room, I'll add in the red beans or kidney beans, and I would also add in some lentils. But that's kind of if I have extra room. Oh, this is really hard to narrow down. Okay, so I'm sticking with that because those are the three beans that I just use the most in my family. So that's why they make the list. Now, of course, my wheats. So we're getting into my wheats, and I have a variety of wheats. I love modern wheats, your heritage wheats, and your ancient grains. So this was actually a very hard list to narrow down. But even after milling for well over a decade, I still come back to I still have the same ride or dies pretty much. And first of all, one of them is a soft white or Corazon. Corazon is an ancient grain or soft white wheat, and they both kind of work very similarly. So ideally, I would like both. Ideally, I want both. And it would be very hard to choose if I could only choose one between soft white wheat or Corazon. I may side on the side of Corazon. And the purpose of this is your soft white wheats and or Corazon, they work great for like your cookies, but you can still use them in muffins, pancakes, waffles, kind of like your lighter baked goods, your non-yeast type breads. And Corazon is just a delicious grain and makes the best rolls in my opinion. So that's why ideally both, but if I had to choose one, it would be Corazon, and I'm adding in an ancient grain. I'm getting an ancient grain in my collection. So, and that also has higher of the micronutrients than your typical modern grains. And as far as my modern grains go, I have to keep my hard red and my hard white wheat on hand. Now, if I had to pare that down even further, I would always go with hard white wheat just because hard white is a bit milder of a flavor. And so I think it's more versatile, but you need a hard wheat for like your yeast type breads, and hard red and hard white are great. But if I had to choose one, it would be hard white. It is my favorite of the two. But with these two hard wheats, I would definitely be stocking up from 4 Generations Organic Farms, which actually is a sponsor of today's video. And that is because they literally have my go-to hard red and hard white wheats. So they actually have a variety of hard red wheats. And my favorite one is the Butler's Gold. Like, if I'm to choose, if I'm to put down ride or die for hard red, it would be Butler Gold. And of course, Stardust is their hard white wheat. I've been using them for years, and they are just such good wheats to have on hand for the hard red and the hard white. They are consistent. They are easy for beginners. They are delicious. They are organic wheat berries that are clean, shipped straight to my house. Good news. If you're buying them in buckets, they're already coming in sealed buckets with oxygen absorbers. And also by supporting them, I'm buying directly from farmers here in the United States of America. So I'm supporting farmers directly, cutting out that middleman. They offer free shipping. Hello. You can't beat that. And so I highly recommend 4 Generations Organic Farms, and many of y'all have as well. It is amazing to see how much y'all are loving them, as well as your go-to hard red and hard white wheat berries. So be sure to check them out. Just go to grainsandgrit.com/4generations. Use coupon code grainsandgrit for 10% off your first order. Tell them I sent you. And thank you so much for Four Generations Organic Farms for sponsoring this video. Okay, so those are the grains categories. So again, it was hard narrowing it down. I am very curious to hear what y'all have to say. Like what is your thinking of what do you like to keep on hand for grains, because we're all different and our families are different, and so that list is probably going to vary. Now let's talk about other items that I definitely need to keep on hand, because while grains are great, we're not just throwing them in a pot and boiling them and eating them, although you definitely could. But there are some other things that I like to keep in my prepper pantry. Now, one of those is definitely my oils. Now, I get this question a lot of what oils I like to use. And if I had to narrow it down, I would stick with two. Now, I have a third one that I really like to use as well, but again, we're trying to narrow it down. So, first of all, extra virgin olive oil. I highly recommend that. First of all, with extra virgin olive oil is an oil that we see in the Bible. It is a very good oil, very nutritious for us, specifically extra virgin olive oil. I use that a lot in my breads. However, extra virgin olive oil is a stronger type oil. And so I like to have a milder type oil on hand. And I usually keep two in stock, and that is avocado oil or peanut oil. Now, anytime I'm frying anything, I'm using peanut oil just because I can, and I'm here in the South, and it's not one of the super crazy bad oils that you hear of, but I know some people don't want to do that. And so avocado oil is actually not bad either. And both of those are good for frying. They are milder tasting, so they're good for making your own mayo, good for using in recipes, things like that. Now, this one, I did state that these are things that can be stored without electricity, refrigeration, and that is true. But oils, I would say, is kind of can be a little tricky. All depends on where you live. Now, I'm in Florida. It can get very hot in here, but I think I would be able to store these well if I had them in like the coolest place in my house, away from sunlight, away from where it gets really, really crazy hot. And then I think I would be okay. But the oils, like that might be a little iffy without climate control. Obviously, I don't stick those out in my shed, but I still think you can do it without refrigeration and stuff. So that's why this one did make the list. Okay, now a big one that is very easy to store, and you should be storing this in quantities, like large quantities, for various reasons, and that is salt. Now, I definitely prefer Redmond's salt. I can buy it in like 25-pound bags, shipped to my house, things like that. I love Redmond salt, and I've been using them for years. So I like to keep the fine salt on hand, and I use that for like everything. That's even our table salt, no problem. I use it in baking, no problem. But then I also like the kosher salt, which that just is a coarser grind of salt. Kosher doesn't mean that it's been blessed by a rabbi or whatever. It just, where kosher salt is talking about the size of the grain. But kosher salt, honestly, is like the best if you are needing to season steaks, hamburgers, to go on the grill. I have found that using that coarser grind, chef's kiss. But we're trying to pare it down. So technically, the only one that I would go with is the fine sea salt, because it's way more versatile to be able to use. And you want salt for so many reasons, especially for a prepper pantry. One, makes the food taste good. Number one reason, makes the food taste good. Makes butter taste better, makes bread taste better, makes everything taste better. But also salt is a preservative. So your meats, things like that. I mean, people used to preserve meat in salt. There's salt pork type of thing. People would pack it in salt. So having a large, decent size amount of salt is so good for a variety of reasons, especially if we get sent back to the Stone Age and don't have things like our refrigeration. You can be able to preserve a lot of things with salt. Love my Redmond salt. You can store it, no problem. I keep it just in a bucket. Keep away pests and obviously moisture. You don't want moisture in the salt, but I still keep my salt even in my uninsulated shed here in Florida with our high amount of humidity, and I've never had any problems, and it stores for like forever. Next step, of course, is my yeast. Now, ideally, you could make a sourdough, but let's face it, y'all. Sourdough it is tricky, it can be finicky, things like that. So yeast is just easier. Now, I prefer instant yeast, and you can buy them in the 1 or 2 pound packs, which you should because that's where it's really cheap. 1 or 2 pound packs. Now, buy them where they're vacuum sealed. And so long as they're vacuum sealed, they will stay on the shelf for a very, very, very long time. Right now, when I open them, I just store them in a bag in my freezer. I don't really need to because I go through it in an alarming fast amount. But when I first started milling my grains, it would take me about 6 months to get through a 1 or 2 pound pack of instant yeast. So keeping it in the freezer was great. But really, you don't need to keep it in the freezer. This is something that can easily be stored, and it's just way easier for your baked goods, especially if you're used to using yeast, and if like stuff hits the fan and now you don't have yeast, like, well, then you're going to have to experiment with sourdough, and that can be very frustrating. So it's just like easier with yeast. And then, like, while the stuff has hit the fan and you have your yeast, then you can be like learning sourdough and then get good at it by the time you run out of yeast. Okay, and then last but not least, of course, my seasonings. Now, I also have a ridiculous amount of seasonings, and no, I will not let go of any of them. But I do have some that I'm always, always reaching for. And I feel like if I have these seasonings, I can make anything taste good. Now, besides salt, we kind of already did salt. The other ones is, of course, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, Italian seasoning, and honorable mention, I would say, would be paprika. I don't have to have it, but it's really nice to have. So I can go without it if I have to, but I really like to have some paprika just on a few things. And so those are the ones that, like, if I have those, I can make it work. So again, you may be different, and you especially may be different based on the foods that you like to cook. All right, so that is my list, y'all. So some tips of deciding what to have. Now, first of all, I've got some things for y'all. Now, I first have my freebie of my grains calculator. So this is where if you're not sure how much of whatever grain that you're wanting, like how much should I have on hand? So for example, if you're wanting to have enough for your family for a year, this is actually a handy dandy calculator worksheet that I have completely free for y'all that you can help calculate how much you need based on your use. So this is especially great for those of you who, unlike me, have been doing this for over a decade and maybe have no clue how much you're actually going through, how much you're actually going to need. So that's going to help you out. So that one is completely free. Next up is I actually do have a course, How to Master Prepping with Grains. And again, this is one where I do believe that grains should be the base of any prepper pantry. So if you really wanted to dive in with my tips, check that course out as well. And then also just the basic thing with prepping is think about what you are always using. What flavors do you like? What things are you constantly reaching for in your kitchen? And then go from there. So that's definitely where I would start is what are you using right now? So comment below. I'm really curious to hear your list. What do you think would be on your list? If someone's like, you know, it's about to go down, whatever, or you have like only a certain amount that you can take to this deserted island, what would it be for y'all? And as I mentioned earlier, if you want to know more about how to be storing grains, why you should be stocking up on them, those are these videos here that I recommend checking out. And as always, I hope that y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll see y'all next week. Bye.